Okay, I didn't hear you. Could you just move the mic
Good
closer?
afternoon.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so the Big Three is on till about 4:30 p.m. where we go to do the sound bites. And then afterwards, after the news by 5 p.m., we are going to be talking about the water situation in the FCT. We have our in-house reporter who is going to be shedding some light on that. We've gotten some reports, I think on eyewitness reports and situation updates. Some people have complained about the quality of water and the lack of it, if you will, across the FCT. Well, our in-house correspondent is going to be sharing some updates on that as much as we can. And that will take us to 6 o'clock, where we get to hear your eyewitness reports and situation updates. So thank you so much for being here all the way up until 7. Thank you in advance. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. You want to go to Nigeria Info Abuja to be part of the conversation there. You can send your messages, send your thoughts, and we will respond to them. And then, of course, the phone lines will be opening up right from after the very first story on the Big Three today, so that you can engage with us as much as possible. So I'm just going to continue, sort of, if you will, from where Swat left off, because this is a huge deal. Talking about this day 20 is where we are at today. It's 20 days since the U.S.-Israel-Iranian war started. And, you know, it's key that we're using the term U.S.-Israel/Iran war, because we have come to understand that this is a joint operation between those two countries, even though some people have touted that it is actually Israel's war, but U.S.'s interest in Iran is what is making them partner with them at this level. Over 1,500 people have now been confirmed dead in the war that the United States and Israel launched against Iran. Also, attacks on major gas facilities in 4 Middle Eastern countries happened yesterday, and this continues to worsen the war's economic impact. And so, as of today, it's day 20. Strikes are intensifying. Casualties continue to rise, with majority of them in Iran, and more than 1,500 people have been confirmed dead, like I said earlier on. So, let's talk about this particular reprisal attack now that happened. Trump coming out to say, or rather to criticize, or would you say critique Israel for an attack on Iran's South Pars gas field, and then Iran, of course, retaliating by attacking Qatar, hitting gas facilities in Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Of course, you can see that Iran it's been called an asymmetrical war. And then, even though they are taking the most hit in terms of casualties, there is also the, if you will, unquantifiable amount of damage that is being done to U.S. bases, and then all of the key, if you will, power and water facilities. At a point, a desalination plant was hit by Iran, but they're hitting their neighboring countries. And so Trump came out to criticize Israel and say, we didn't send you. Why did you do that? It was unnecessary. And that has just made a few questions come up. We'll come back to Trump's policy, you know, continuing to target Iran. I mean, earlier on in the week, we heard that one of his key officials, as far as counterintelligence, resigned from his post, also criticizing Trump's continued stance on Iran. But in terms of this particular update now, the question has come up, how is this happening? Why are we having U.S. critique Israel when they are joint partners in this war? Is it possible at all that hit on Iran's South Pars gas field was done without the U.S.'s knowledge? Let's start from there. Sir, what's your take on this? I'm interested to know.
Let me begin. I had, over time, I have taken time to follow the development in the Middle East.
Yes.
I've spoken in several media interviews on this. I mean, it's and I could let me quickly respond.
Okay.
President Donald J. Trump didn't criticize Israel. He said
didn't.
Israel out of anger. If you read the Truth Social post, he said Israel out of anger did this. So that's not a critique. But what he's simply saying, perhaps where it affected the U.S. interest could simply be this: the attack on the gas plant in Qatar, Ras Lafan in Qatar, gas field that was attacked.
Yes.
See, what has happened is U.S. have their own war plan. Israel have their own war plan. Each of these countries are independent countries that take their decision, have separate interests. I've listened to people argue that they are fighting together. Some like Democrats and some media out there in the United States are saying, "Oh, Netanyahu is dragging Donald Trump to war." That is completely false. If you follow the crisis or the debate in the Middle East, especially relating to Iran, in 2015, July 14th, that was when the government or the administration of Barack Obama got what he called the Iranian deal on nuclear, proliferation. They signed the nuclear deal with Iran, asking them not to go further, not to acquire and all that. And that deal was to take off on January 16th, 2016, just 6 days before Obama exists. So for Donald Trump or whoever had won that election, even if it's Secretary Hillary Clinton, if you follow Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2008, as well as in ahead of the 2015 election, she was clear of what she was going to do ahead of the 2016 election regarding Iran. Mind you, there's a history to it. In 1979, when the Iranian revolution, Islamic revolution happened, America was a victim of that revolution. Americans were held hostage for over a year.
There was a reason behind that.
Hold on. And an attempt made by the then President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, to rescue them failed.
There was a reason behind the Americans being held hostage.
No, it doesn't matter. The key thing is the Shah of Iran, who was deposed by the Islamists who took over, was a friend of America. And his son was in America at that point in time. So the relationship, in fact, the oil fields in Iran were developed by Americans. Just the way they developed that of Saudi Arabia and what have you, all across that region. So if you understand what is at play, it helps you to really situate or frame what is going on at the moment. For Israel is thinking about their survival, because death to Israel, death to America. So each of them, and Israel is closer, America is far flung. So you can't get America. So what is the war plan of Iran? They simply look at the Gulf states, who are allies of the United States, and begins to hit them as the closest target. So they are more or less, you could say, collateral damage of a bigger war with a superpower they are unable to reach. So they now say, okay, they've got bases here, military bases here, let's hit it.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Gulf states have said no United States plane or warplane takes off from our soil. But they are yet to be convinced. They are asking, where do they take off from? So what they want to do is to provoke the Gulf state. But again, that's a poor war plan. These are your closest friends. You are all within the Arab League. And suddenly you are attacking them. So what you have done is to isolate yourself. That's what Iran has done. I think the policy thinkers or strategists within Iran have poor mentality.
Okay.
All they would have done is to cultivate. But let me tell you, United States of America, Pentagon takes their decision independent of Israel.
Which brings me to my next question. But before that question, just to address a few things. You alluded to the history of the Iranian-U.S. relationship, and you made mention of the people that were taken hostage. And just so that we are providing appropriate context, in the face of following the revolution, the Iranian leader sought what they call should we call it asylum now in the U.S. And the Iranian people kept urging the U.S. to release their leader back to them, failing which they now took American people hostages as a means of exchange to get the Iranian leader back. They were well within their rights to demand for their leader to come back. Can we agree on that at the very least?
Is he going to face justice? Would they treat him fairly? Is he going to get a fair hearing? No country in the world hands over such a political leader to another country just because you are requesting. An example is this. There was a coup in Nigeria in 1976, and suddenly our president, who was the then General Gowon, who was at a conference in Kampala, Uganda, got to the UK. Did Nigeria request for him or not? But did the UK accede to that request?
Okay.
Nobody does that.
Okay.
Because the first thing is that you are going to assure the country where he is seeking asylum that when he comes back, you're going to treat him with respect.
Okay.
There will be fair hearing and there will be transparent, whatever. But they were not sure it's going to happen.
Just so that we don't digress, let's leave that. Let's say, as for that context, we are agreeing to disagree on the reason for the hostages being held. I understand you said that. So I say let's leave it like that. But so that we don't digress, I need us to come back to the question at hand. We're having a conversation about the statement by DJT concerning Israel's attack on Iran, and you have said these two countries, though they're in a joint operation, take decisions independent of each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bearing that in mind, for Donald Trump to now explicitly order that there should be no more attacks made by Israel on this particular field, how do you think this will affect their special relationship, especially as it has to do with public policy? Because you have said here, they make decisions independent of each other. So if they're making decisions independent of each other, a Donald Trump ordering that no more attacks be made on this Iran's gas plant, wouldn't that lead to a straining of the relationship? Because some have already alluded that there is a possible strain in the relationship
if you move further,
with the statements that we've seen.
Further on that, if you read Donald Trump's post on Truth Social, incidentally, I follow Truth Social. I have an account there, and the moment he drops, I get an alert. I read through it.
Right.
He simply, it's a political speak, if you ask me.
He's ordering.
He can't order Benjamin Netanyahu. That's number one.
He gave a condition, though. He said.
He gave a proviso and said, look, if another attack happens,
then
the U.S. will now take that initiative.
Let me read what he said verbatim, because we're quoting from Truth Social at this point. He said, if another attack should happen by Iraq on Qatar or other innocent countries, then America, with or without the consent of Israel, will then go ahead and totally demolish this particular gas field in question. Again, he's using the word consent, which alludes to a sort of, let's discuss this before we take this move, and all of that. Would you also say that is political speak?
No, what I know, I have followed this war, from day one, even ahead of time. I had followed it closely. I knew it was going to break out somehow. Now, the question what I know is that the Pentagon, decision makers in Pentagon, are independent of any other country. When you take an oath of office as a top person in Pentagon, you're going to say you will not be influenced by anybody outside. So, and I believe the people in Pentagon knows where the American interest lies. And the guys there in Tel Aviv who take decisions are also aware where the interest of Israel lies in this war. But simply what has happened is that there's a fusion of interest, that because they have found a common enemy. My enemy's enemy is my friend, if you could use that idiom too. They have a common enemy. They are saying, look, Iran cannot be allowed to develop nuclear weapon.
Yes.
That's the simple thing. And they are thinking that between June last year and now, that Iran has gone ahead. In fact, I saw a report, I think a few days ago, that what they are doing now is to have their nuclear, plants underground. do you understand? So what has happened is that I believe Pentagon decision makers are independent of the guys who take decision in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem.
Let's talk a little bit about these decision makers in Pentagon. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of U.S. National Intelligence, told the Senate Intelligence Committee yesterday that intelligence assessments have shown that Iran has not been building its nuclear enrichment capabilities since the U.S. attack last year. And this statement, delivered by the U.S. National Intelligence Director, seems to undermine Trump's key justifications for the ongoing war. He said, and I quote, As a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There have been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. This was what she said in her written testimony, and she noted that Iran's government has been degraded due to the assassination of its leaders, but it appears to be intact. According to her, Tehran and its proxies remain capable of attacking U.S. and allies' interests in the Middle East. The regime in Iran appears to be intact, but largely degraded by Operation Epic Fury. Now, in light of this statement, let me come back again to the conversation around Iran's interest vis-a-vis the U.S. interest, if you will. All right, so looking at, I don't know, from your assessment, it does seem like Israel is particular about destroying Iran's economy, because for them that's their primary security goal, while the U.S. is prioritizing energy market stability. What do you make of these two interests, unless you feel differently about them, of course, in line with what this director of U.S. National Intelligence has said?
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, in speaking to the Senate, I've not read
that particular comment.
Yeah,
okay.
but as someone I'm very interested in.
Okay.
I've followed her trajectory since she took over, and the key thing is this. From what you have said, for the U.S., I mean, it's time they are looking at a regime change in Iran.
They have denied that. Yeah. It hasn't been said outrightly.
Yeah, nobody will agree with
J.D. Vance said
in
that's
fact,
not the goal.
After Iran, the next, from what has filtered in a lot of few days' time, in the last few days, is Cuba. Perhaps that will be another target. Yeah. So, would they admit publicly of regime change? Somehow, it may not be obvious. But from day one, if you listen to the first public remarks by President Donald J. Trump, he's saying, asking the Iranian Revolutionary Guard to lay down their arms.
Yeah.
So when an army lays down their arms, it means there is change in commander-in-chief. There's a change in command. That's actually an interpretation is that of a regime change. That's one.
Okay.
Again, for Israel, their proximity to Iran, it's an issue. Then the Iranian proxies around them. You are talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon. You are talking about Hamas in Gaza. And they have kept saying, look, these guys are funded, these groups are funded by Iran. That's the position of Israel. So, and whatever Israel can do at any time, remember, between December and January, there were internal protests in Iran. So that may have given whoever is the decision makers in Pentagon, in Tel Aviv, some kind of, perhaps this is a time to start this wahala. Because it looks as if the government was weak at that point. People on the street, and the government, instead of engaging, I'm talking about the government in Tehran, instead of engaging, the Iranian regime now saw it as an opportunity to become repressive. And that repression would have created a lot of disquiet within the system. And that's why across the world, if you follow development, you see Iranians who are in exile, not by choice, are all on the streets. They are happy. They are urging Israel on. They are urging Donald Trump. For them, it's not an issue. This should happen so that they can go home. A country they've not been to in the last almost a century. So they want to go home. I listened to the Iranian crown prince. He said, look, I've been out of my country for almost 50 years. You want to go home.
You're talking about the Shah's son.
Yeah, the son of the Shah. Yeah. So what is happening is simply this. Someone has asked me a while ago on a media program, when will it end? I said, look, it will be a long drawn battle. It will end soon. If you listen to Donald Trump, in his first remark, one of his remarks earlier, the first week of the war, they had asked him, the prices are going up. He said, yes, they will go up. They can get to the roof, but they are going to fall. Do they have a plan to stabilize the energy market? They do. All you need to do, release strategic reserve. That strategic reserve will have a way of stabilizing the market.
Well,
it will.
Not necessarily, because, from what I've heard about some of the reserves that have been released, we're having at most, from what I've seen, reserves that would last about a month. And you're looking at something that, from what you've said and what DJT seems to be ready to do, you're looking at something that could be as long as a decade-long occupation. And in the face of what we're already seeing in terms of global prices and everything, do you really think that, as an analyst, what do you think is the best course for not having this whole fight for dominance that will, at the end of the day, possibly lead to global economic collapse?
Okay. A couple of days ago, Donald Trump had asked, which was a bait to his NATO allies, he said, look, why don't you come to the Strait of Hormuz and let's push out these guys? They said, we aren't.
Bait in what sense?
Bait, he wanted to know who are our allies. That's what he said. In fact, he tweeted about it, wanted to test them. He said he has now taken a decision on who are the allies of the United States and who are not.
So imagine the implications of that. You are determining who your allies are by setting baits.
When you are in trouble.
If we're going by your analysis,
you pretend to be in trouble.
I know. So going by that analysis, you are trying to figure out who your allies are, and then chances are that, from what we've seen, and this is who Trump has proven to be in times past, he will find a way to hit back at them. Correct? Now you're looking at the everything that is happening in the Middle East with Iran and the neighboring countries, which is seemingly set off by this position by Israel and the U.S. You're having that happen. It is affecting even countries outside of the Middle East. And then you're also looking at, with the whole conversation around, I don't need anybody. We actually never needed them in the very beginning. And then we're going to see actions probably coming out of that. Yeah. You're having so much going on. Again, my question is it worth it all to have possible global economic collapse, maybe not in the next 30 days because there are reserves. But remember, it's not just oil that is affected in passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and a number of other key resources as well. So the impact on that end is huge. And then you're not going to have a possible fallout because DJT has said, you're no longer my allies. What is the best, what is like a best way out of this scenario is my question.
For now, I think the strategy is, I have viewed it, get the regime in Tehran wary. Worry them, is that they come to the table, but I know they are not going to come to the table because they've got big ego. They won't come to the table.
We're seeing ego on both sides
and
here.
And it will be a long drawn battle. Possibly at a point there will be regime change. It will happen.
Okay.
It's a question of time. Because when the weight is heavy and you're going to have some sort of internal disaffection and people will begin to say, look, we need to find a way out of it. If you watch, what we're experiencing now happened with the Ukraine-Russian war. When Russia invaded Ukraine, initially the prices of petroleum products and other commodities went up. But after some time, it stabilized. We're in 4th year of the war. Nobody remembers it. In fact, at the moment, when was the last time it came into conversation that there's a fight going on in Ukraine? Well, people are dying every day there. A few weeks ago, Pakistan, went into war with Afghanistan. Nobody's focusing on that. Because they are very smaller wars. Wars are in grades.
I think it's a question of the impact that is having.
Who are engaged in it.
I think it's a question of the impact more than anything else. With the Ukraine-Russia situation, not as many countries were affected. Some more than others. Some continents more than others. And then there were also alternatives. Now you're looking at energy. Energy is...
What energy are you talking about? You are talking about 20%.
Of the world, yes.
Global energy.
Yes.
That's only what is there. And it's not the first time it has happened. In 1973, what you call oil boom came from the Arab-Israeli war. That's what led Syria, Egypt went on war against Israel. the Yom Kippur War. That's what led to oil embargo by OPEC, especially the Arab members. And Nigeria, that was when Nigeria achieved what you could call the biggest, largest economic breakthrough, the oil boom of Nigeria. It's just that the administration in place at that time, General Gowon, either he didn't have the capacity, the leadership capacity to manage that prosperity. I mean, mismanaged it. And that's why Nigeria is still here today.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, even in the midst of this current war, it means the 80% production in the global market is still there. It's still available. But the only thing you could tell me is this: because of so much attention that is paid to the Middle East and what Middle East represents in the global geopolitics, that could be why we're paying attention. Let me tell you, between 80% and 20%, what huge difference does it make? That's number one. Then two, why do you think everybody is fixated on that? Don't you think it could be some vested interest somewhere who are looking at the midterm election coming up in the US? They are going to say, look, because if I'm a decision maker in Pentagon, we're going to have a different approach to this.
Let's open up the phone line, so we may be able to come and ask what that approach might be. But let's hear from the listeners. We're still on the first story. We have two more to go. 07009510000, 0809-597-4869, and on WhatsApp 0809-993-0137. Please remember, when you're sending voice notes, keep them no longer than a minute 30 seconds. I might be able to stretch it a little longer, but anything from a 2-minute mark, I will not play, so that we can have time for as many people. And for those of you calling, a minute 30 seconds applies to you as well. Let's talk. Good afternoon.
Hello, Lady Somi.
Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Abubakar calling from Google. Good afternoon, yes, analyst.
Yeah, good afternoon.
You have indeed been so much out of me. I see it, doctor. But what I want to say, irrespective of the American perspective of the conflict in the Middle East and the Israeli narrative, we should form independent opinion ourselves. In the beginning, before this war, the Americans and Iranians were on negotiating table, when suddenly the Donald Trump ordered the beginning of that war. And in the beginning, they assassinated the future leader of Iran, and they caused havoc on their infrastructural assets. So we should know, it is no matter of ego. Iran has been committed. They have been following along, and they are ready to carry out some concession from their own side when the war started. So Iran cannot hit America. They don't have ballistic missile that will reach America.
All right,
and
sir.
They have said, they are threatening that they will target American assets in Middle East, and that is what is happening. And before this time,
thank you, sir.
Have slammed tariffs on both of the NATO members, and he called them bluff. But now he's calling for their cooperation.
All right.
All the NATO countries, they are not ready to get themselves involved in this war.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'm not in support of the war.
Thank you very much, sir.
Because it's causing disruption and suffering to the whole world.
Thank you, sir.
Madness.
All right, thank you, sir. Let me stop you there. Apologies, but we need to move on and take some more calls. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Somi.
Welcome.
My name is Malcolm on the line.
All right, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, you see, let us see the truth. And the truth is bitter. See, America, they are chameleons. What they are putting their hand, because what they are gang up with Israel is wrong. America is supposed to be centered to keep peace, to make peace. It's not about joining hands together with Israel and bomb Iran. Even Iran is doing wrong. They need to look at investigate and look into it as American. What they are doing, they want to cause world war. Because the whole world, what they are causing now, the whole world, the whole country, the whole world is having problem now. And questionable so. When we are looking to truth, because when you look at Israel, from the beginning of this world, God created this world as a peace, as loving nation, the whole world.
Okay.
Israel is the trouble from the beginning of this world created. They are trouble in silence, making trouble. So America to come in to settle the issue and gang up with Israel, bombing, you are saying they are doing the right thing. They're not supposed to have a nuclear weapon.
All right.
They cannot have a nuclear weapon. No, HM may not have it. Everybody have it. Why they don't allow them to have it? Because they are prognosed for many countries.
All right, sir.
Many countries more than them. They are wicked.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll stop you there. Again, please let's be conscious of the time so that as many people can get in on the conversation as possible. Remember, we still have 2 more stories to get to. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Lukman, calling from Zamani.
Go ahead, Lukman.
Yes. The 2 individuals, Netanyahu and Trump, they are a mistake to the world as global peace is concerned. The reason why there is the crisis in the Gaza still continues is Netanyahu. When he called for the assassination of that Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, after the Oslo Accord, they were making headway. There was a roadmap, led by, I think, Bill Clinton then. That's okay, let us create a state call for the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin because he agreed to that accord. And since then, he has found himself into power in Israel. He said, never, there will not be peace.
Okay.
He's attacking Syria, he's attacking Yemen, he's attacking Iran, he's attacking this and that. So that's why I said they are a mistake to the world. Look at the whole world now. People are dying, destroying everything. What do they want to gain? All this. And Donald Trump himself, who is more of a gangster leader, he just wants to show that he's there, he's convinced to go and fight war. And here we are now. The whole world is suffering it. So I think the best thing is, and the American Senate, Congress, they morally support the war because they are just pretending. All this one they are saying, you cannot trust them because there are some of the Zionists in the U.S. Congress who are very influential, so they know how to do their thing. So it's unfortunate that we have those 2 individuals in a position of authority in countries of the world. Very sad. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll take one more call and then get to the other stories that we have. Hello?
Hi,
Hello?
Somi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Very well. Otto on the line, and welcome to the guest. All right. So I think we should also be guided when we are making statements because there's a precedent. I'm hearing someone say there's a reckless attack, Iran, Syria, and the question is there no cause? And nobody when we talk about Israel and what's happening in Palestine and all that with the conflict actually in Gaza, how did it start? Did Israel just invade Gaza? Was there no cause? Why are people not talking about genocide and the thousands of Israelis that were killed unarmed? Why are we not talking about that? And it's pretty funny actually when we talk about the fact that the 2-state solution didn't work or wouldn't work, because if you look at the nation of Israel, you find out that the guys in Palestine actually they work in Israel. And on that 7th October attack, you also find out that some of them actually killed the people they were working for, snitched on them, raped these people, and the world turned a blind eye to that.
Okay.
You were never condemned this, but when Israel started retaliatory strikes, the whole world actually, went on uproar. So I think we should be guided when we make certain statements, actually, because this guy, Israel, has a right to exist. And the Iranian president, or the supreme leader,
All right.
whatever he's called, actually, had said, I'm confident with this, had said that Israel should be wiped out from the face of the earth. This is a man also that killed his own citizens, over 30,000 people, and nobody said a word.
All right, then.
So is it wrong actually to take him out?
Well, I mean, I hear you. Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution. I think if we're working with the facts of this matter, irrespective of what has been said, the key thing is, and again, I go back to the statement by the U.S. Director of Intelligence. The key thing is that the major conversation around how much of a security threat Iran poses to Israel has been hinged on and around a nuclear program. And you are having the U.S. Director of National Intelligence saying that ever since the U.S. attack last year, there has been none of these programs coming up again. Hence, what is the justification? This current time, what is the justification right now? I think that is the biggest question a lot of people are trying to answer. The term that was used when the first strikes came out were preemptive. So you are preemptive in your approach. How do they call it now? It's like you are attacking to defend yourself. Which in a sense is not entirely a bad thing until you're now having a situation which brought up this conversation in the first place, where you're having two seemingly different interests participating frontline of this war. Israel seems to have its own interests separate from the U.S., and so it then makes it an even more messy situation. That is the core of this. If it was just Israel and Iran, and you're able to decimate whatever possible nuclear capabilities that you sense that they were working on, and it ends there, you say, okay, we've done our bid. We are now a little bit more secure than we were in the past. Remember, conversations around this nuclear program that Iran has been supposedly building has been on since as far back as the 80s. Netanyahu has always come, in attack against Iran because of these perceived nuclear capabilities. So again, for me, I think the biggest question is the impact is on such a scale that you cannot have two differing interests, front line and center of this war, so much so that Trump is now coming to order. And you've called it political speak, sir, but I think it's safe to say that we can judge by the merits of some of Trump's action that it could be much more than that. And though it is done to deter any further attacks by Iran, especially on its neighbors, which, I mean, would make more sense. But at the same time, if Israel says, I don't care about your order, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to do, because for me, my goal is to secure the nation of Israel against any possible threats. And remember, there's also a conversation around the kind of precedents you set. What you allow now, what we've seen has been allowed now, can also be used as justification to go against any other nation that is a perceived threat, even though intelligence has shown that whatever they were doing in terms of nuclear enrichment was obliterated last year, and they've not done anything else since then. So I think that's the bigger conversation to be had here, but we need to move on to the next story, sir. I'm sure that time will allow for us to come back as the listeners are asking, but let me just quickly put out this second story as an intro. We'll go for a commercial break, and then we'll pick it up from there. All right. Now, conversations around the historic UK visit have been in the news since yesterday, and as a matter of fact, one key conversation that has come up, I think, beyond the ceremonial, hula baloo of it all, is what is deemed as a snub of the opposition, with the in the leadership of Kemi Badenoch. Yeah, we're going beyond the what do they call it now? Some will say, okay, there's a context and there's a reason. Kemi has had her stance towards Nigeria a lot of the time, but you cannot ignore the fact that she's currently leader of the opposition in the UK right now. So for us, we're looking at the key implications of this, if any. First of all, do you agree that there might be implications to this? Let me just start with that simple question.
Absolutely no.
You don't think so? Okay.
No
All
implication.
right.
The point is that at this point in time,
yes,
the initial part of the program or itinerary,
yes,
is the president of Nigeria is a guest of the King of England. And in that case, when he finishes with the ceremonials with the king, I think that's when meeting with the political leaders in England.
Okay.
The prime minister, the opposition leaders and all that comes.
Well, some have said that the fact that the president of Nigeria is in the UK at all was at the instance of the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who then, of course, by virtue of his position, had to notify the king to say, okay, this is what we have planned.
In England,
yes.
The leadership, the King of England, is the person who invites anyone for a state visit.
Okay.
If you remember when Trump went there, Ken Starr, the Prime Minister, delivered a message from the King of England to Trump. If you remember that. So you are a guest of the King, and when you are a guest of the King, that's where it starts from before it gets down to the political leaders.
Okay, fine. Let's use that as our base for this. Beyond the ceremonial aspects of it, really and truly, which is what we saw with the king, it is deemed to be a high-stakes economic mission, and we've heard that several multi-billion-pound agreements have been signed or are currently being signed. And by focusing on Starmer's government and the monarchy, the president of Nigeria is said to secure concrete commitments that might have been complicated by engaging with a more critical conservative leadership, which explains why perhaps there was no mind paid to the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi
but that's a
Badenoch.
political mistake, if you ask me.
Okay, well, because that was the first question I asked you. Do you think it was going to have any implications? And you said
why
no.
is it a political mistake in England?
Yes.
In the UK, any party can be in power with a snap of hands.
Exactly.
Assuming Ken Starr, current Prime Minister, calls for an early election.
Yes.
And the Labour loses.
Yes.
And from the data on ground, the Labour Party is likely going to lose the next election. Either Reform Party, the UK Reform Party, or the Conservative Party comes back. So in dealing with such situation, they operate parliamentary system of government where you do not have an executive president who has a secured tenure. It's a question of an election. There's an uproar in the parliament. The prime minister gets angry, calls for a snap election, and that's that. So what do you do in such a situation? Even though the president of Nigeria or any other Nigerian political leader cannot reach out to Kemi. I remember there was I think one of the Nigerian official, if my memory serves me right, the head of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission said to have reached out to Kemi. Kemi said, no, get to the UK High Commission in Nigeria. Yeah, because it's all in the UK, both the opposition leader or opposition party have what they call shadow cabinets. And each of these shadow cabinets, they have official functions. So in dealing with such a country, you deal with everybody. It doesn't matter whether you like their face or what they have said or what they have not said, because in the UK, the government can change anytime. It's fluid.
Okay, all right. We're going to take that break. When we come back, we'll look a little bit in detail into some of these key multi-billion-pound deals that have been signed and the implications or possible implications of that snub of the leader of the Conservative Party. But let's go on this break after this. We'll continue.
is Hard Facts.
Hard Facts.
Hard Facts.
On 95.1 Nigeria Info.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We get back to you and your thoughts and conversations on our stories in the Big Three today. We started with the situation with the U.S.-Israel-Iran war, with what's looked like differing opinions on certain attacks that are being done by Israel, and President Donald Trump's statement ordering that no other attack should happen on the gas plant in Iran. Also with the condition that if any does happen, or rather that if Iran continues to attack its neighbors, then the U.S. will proceed without consent from Israel to go all out. And which got us to the point of asking the question, what would it mean if it's looking like the interests are differing? What are the implications of that? One person is saying, this is where I'm facing. Another person says, this is my core interest. And should Israel go against that order? What does that mean? Not just for the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, but also for the war in general. Our second story today, we are looking at the situation in the UK, and my guest has been helping us make sense of some of the happenings in the last 2 days. It started yesterday, and today is the high-stakes economic part of that trip, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the deals. But my guest still remains Mr. Emmanuel Ozoemena, a journalist and a public policy analyst. Thank you so much once again for joining us on this conversation. All right, we're going to get to the questions in a little bit, but like I said, just a little bit of an insight into some of these deals and what it would mean with the president's snub of the leader of the opposition. There is a crown, what is being termed as the crown jewel of the visit is 746 million pounds or $940 million financing agreement involving UK Export Finance and the Nigerian Ports Authority, as well as the Federal Ministry of Finance. Now, the target of this deal is major modernization and refurbishment of the Lagos Port Complex, the Apapa Quays, as well as Tinkan Island Port Complex. The goal is to eliminate bottlenecks in Nigeria's maritime trade and increase the efficiency of the gateway to the Nigerian economy. There is also a conversation around security and defense, and building on the 2024 strategic partnership, Tinubu and PM Keir Starmer moved towards a fresh security alliance focused on the Sahel crisis. Our third story today is actually going to be dealing with what's happening in the Sahel and where Nigeria positions on that. So, I mean, if they're going to be getting some sort of help in terms of security and defense, then it would make sense, right? There is also the conversation around financial and tech surge as the visit coincided with a wave of private sector activity, signaling that British and Nigerian businesses are moving faster than the politicians, in the words someone described it as. But yes, we've talked about that very key one. There is also UK bilateral aid to Nigeria that was adjusted upwards from £117 million to £135 million for the 2025-2026 cycle, specifically targeting institutional strengthening rather than just direct relief. There is a conversation around health there as well. But my question, sir, we've talked a little bit about the impact of the snub, and you've shed some light on it. But if we're going to be more, in depth, some have said that part of the reason why that snub happened is because the president is focusing more on practicality. That's just look at who is the leader at a time like this, face them and deal with them squarely. It doesn't really matter if you consult with the opposition or if you were to acknowledge the opposition or not. Meanwhile, speaking of acknowledgement, Kemi was actually at the banquet, I think. She was there. So it's not as if she didn't show up at all. She was there for that particular banquet, but there was no other recognition, if you will. So looking at all of this, you were talking about the fact that it wasn't a wise political move. What else could be the other possible impacts from this?
Let me give a background. I've worked for projects funded by UK aid over time, so I could say I have some level of understanding of how the UK work. That's one. Number two, I remember we start a project. At the beginning of the project, you have one prime minister. Before the project ends, you have another prime minister. So that was why I was giving that context, because it just takes a snap of finger and that's the administration changes. And each administration, whether it's a Conservative Party, Labour Party, have got their own priorities. Yeah, but I think some of these stories, especially on the snob, could have been a reporter, I can tell you sure, who doesn't understand how UK works. That's why you could have such, I read it in the Guardian newspaper. So when I saw it, I said, look, the guy writing this doesn't understand how UK works. Kemi, who is she? Kemi is a British politician and a leader of the opposition party, the Conservative Party.
Yes.
That just left government a few years ago. It hasn't been long. So, and that's a very big position, because the UK Parliament, when they want to take a decision, when they want to take a vote, they are not like the National Assembly of Nigeria. I mean, sorry to say that, where proper debate do not happen. I mean, if you've taken time to listen to what they call Prime Minister question and answer, you would have understand how the British Parliament works. You need to lobby every member of the Parliament to get your vote through. So that's that. Good that we are getting support, investment in the ports to make it more efficient. But the first question I'm going to ask, is it only in Lagos and Apapa and Tinkan that we've got port? The answer is no. So what is happening to the eastern ports? That's a big issue. And between Warri, between Sapele, Warri, Koko, down there, you have about 7 ports that are underutilized. And that underutilization started in 1968 when the war broke out. In fact, before the war broke out, we had only a Apapa port. Tinkan had to be built to be able to take in the ships that were coming to Nigeria in that 3 years of war, because they were diverting, ships meant for Nigeria to other countries. So war ended about 55 years ago in 1970. And Nigeria hasn't considered it a policy to reactivate the eastern ports. I mean, I've over 6 years ago, I remember I was here, I asked these questions. Because the only way you can decongest the Apapa port is by looking at the ports in Warri, in Sapele, in Koko, in Calabar, in Port Harcourt, in One, a port in Baka, somewhere in Akwa Ibom, in Oron. So there's no country that would concentrate all their economic activity in just one port, in just one city. That doesn't make economic sense. Let me tell you, the available data by National Inland Waterways Authority says over 50% of the ports, about 46% of the ports of the cargoes are meant for Aba and Onitsha. That's where the people who are importing it comes from. So why don't you reactivate Warri? Why don't you reactivate One? Why don't you reactivate Port Harcourt? That's the question. Because it's actually, if I have importers in Onitsha who are my friends, who are my relatives, between Onitsha and Lagos and Onitsha, it takes you 3 weeks to 1 month to get a container. So why don't we bridge it? Why don't we solve that problem? So that's what I expect. That's the type of port reforms I'm expecting to happen. That's what I'm expecting. So it's good we have this investment coming from the UK, but what we need to do, we need to push it further. Tech is good. Let me tell you, UK is the largest exporter of education. Over 50, as at 2022, 50 presidents of heads of state are people who were educated in the UK, 50 of them. America has 44. That's data from Russia has 14. Data from 2022. So why don't we ask UK to set up schools here so that we don't need to export our money back to UK on education? These are some of the things I think the president should be asking. Ask UK schools that people run to there to set up campuses in Nigeria. I'm sure it will somehow trigger competition internally so that universities here can sit up.
I think I heard someone on when Swart was on, I can't remember, okay, I think it was Swart herself, talking about interest when it comes to some of these bilateral agreements and, visits, foreign policy and all of that. She spoke about interest. And just a little more context before we open up the phone lines. As far as this £746 million deal...
Billion, rather.
Million?
Is it billion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Or $950 billion dollars. Yes. So in pounds, it's 746 million. 236 million of this 746 million pounds is required to be spent on British companies, which will also bring us to the question that are we truly modernizing our ports, or are we taking on sovereign debts
it doesn't
to subsidize the British steel industry?
No, it doesn't matter who is. The loan we take from China, you have Chinese companies all over the world. I think there are about 10 million Chinese across Africa. They are coming because you're taking money from the Chinese Exim Bank. So they are not going to give it to you to walk away. They are going to ask, say, this is what we want.
Certain preconditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So these are their conditions. So
okay.
For me, I don't have any problem with that because by the time you go borrowing, the guy sets condition. So they are not going to hand it over to you, give it to German or French or Chinese contractors.
So it's a loan. It's not a gift. It's a loan.
No, it's going to be paid back.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a grant.
All right.
Grants are things you don't pay back, but if it's loan, I mean, you're going to pay back.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to establish that because, from your explanation, if it is a loan, then some of these preconditions are important.
Yeah, even China.
But if it's a grant, maybe we need to establish really and truly if it's a loan or a grant before we go down that tangent.
You're going to have a UK company or consultancy implement it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the phone line 009-597-4869 and on WhatsApp 009-993-0137. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, Auntie Somi. How do you do?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Obedient Elder, Comrade Tony, calling from Abuja.
All right, sir.
Yes, let me quickly greet your guest there for speaking truth to power regarding some of these bilateral agreements that has been signed between Nigeria and Britain yesterday that has to do with port, renovation in Lagos. I mean, like your guest rightly said, is it only those three ports in Lagos that will be servicing the whole country? I mean, and quite honestly, I am from the Midwest, and to the best of my knowledge, there is a seaport in Satle belonging to NPA. There is one in Warri, there is one in Port Harcourt, there is one in Calabar, then a new one is coming up in Akwa Ibom. Okay, now it's like a foolish man who put all his eggs in one basket. If that basket drops, then what happens? Everything, get destroyed. Look, I think this marginalization of the Easterners did not start today. It is clearly 56 years since the last civil war ended. What has happened to the Southeasterners? The Southeasterners has continuously been marginalized in this country.
All right.
This is not how a country grows. Economically, the Igbos, look, let me even tell Nigerians, I'm not an Igbo man.
You have 10 more seconds, sir.
I always fight for their cause. Yes, I always fight for the cause of the Igbos. Look, when the war ended, it was only 20 pounds that was given to every Igbo man, no matter the amount. And yet today, they are still the one controlling the economy of this country.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. That's your time. We need to get back to other callers. Hello. Okay. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
I think
What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Metama.
Go ahead.
I want to say that I think it's all about, I think what that agreement is about insurance agreement, I think it's all about investment in the port. I don't think it's loan or interest because you are investing on port. I was speaking about what that guy said. What happened to other ports? I think we should be able to open the country. What happened to we that are from the south? What happened to Calabar? The port in Calabar? What happened in Port Harcourt? I think what happened? Apart from
the port that the state governor is building in Akwa Ibom, the big seaport. I think we need to open up another port. Apart from Une port, which is the gas port in Une, I think we'll be able to talk about other ports that will be able to open up, other ports, not talk about the Lekki and the other ports in Lagos. But we should have our straight around how to open up our ports. So if we are investing over 100 something million pounds, we should think about how to open up other ports. I think that should be more beautiful and excellent for us. We don't talk about that to, in Lagos alone, because currently now I'm working on import and export project.
Okay.
So you have to think how to think out other investment to open up another port. I think it should be good for us.
All right then. Thank you very much, sir. On WhatsApp, Oludade Abiodi says, good afternoon, Somi and the guest. What I can see here is terrible politics. What is going on in the Middle East is simple politics that, if not properly managed, may degenerate to something else. Those Iranians abroad who are celebrating what is going on in their country are nothing but politicians, just like the way some people would like to see Nigeria trouble for the sake of politics. All right, Oludade Abiodun, that's your message. Matthew Gray from Karima says, good afternoon, Somi and our guest. I don't want anyone to be carried away by DJT's statements on Israel. They are working together and the destination is how they can get Iran down and stop them from their nuclear armaments. All right. Daniel from AYA with this one. Good afternoon, Somi. Trump is just playing with the intelligence of its allies. How can he come all the way from the U.S. to cause problems and fight war in Iran, Middle East through its allies and expect Iran not to respond to protect its sovereignty? Any U.S. allies that join this war must be playing with the lives of their citizens. I love the way Iran is responding to the war because no country is a monopoly of power, call it U.S. or Israel. No country should have a monopoly of nuclear weapons. U.S. has, Israel has, and Iran will have too. Non-proliferation treaty occurred when U.S., Israel, and other countries acquired nuclear warheads, and the treaty is signed to suppress Iran. Trump and Israel are fighting a war that they will not win. Good afternoon. I listened to your discussion on Iran, Israel, and the global economic impact. I'm concerned by the quality of analysis from your guest. A few points he made were misleading. The Strait of Hormuz is not a minor factor. It carries about 1/5 of global oil and petroleum consumption and more than 1/4 of global seaborne oil trade. So dismissing 20% as insignificant is inaccurate. Also saying strategic reserves will simply stabilize everything ignores the fact that reserves are only a temporary buffer. Even the IAE says long-term stability depends on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. King Famuse continues by saying comparing a conflict involving Iran and the Strait of Hormuz to smaller regional wars without acknowledging the difference in scale and energy impact is not great analysis. He also said that the Shah has been away from Iran for almost a century. That is plainly false. It's been about 47 years since 1979. Listeners deserve informed analysis. Please hold guests to a higher standard when discussing international affairs, especially on issues with major global economic consequences. All right. We'll take one voice note and then we'll get our guest to respond. Hello? All right, I said hello. Good afternoon. Yes.
As it's regard to Israel, US, and Iran, you see whether Iran is building nuclear weapon or not. The fact that they have sent out a threat to Israel to wipe them out of the face of the earth, to obliterate them, and that when they get their weapon, when they become, nuclear power, they are going to first, test their might on Israel and America. You don't expect Israel to go to sleep. If your enemy threatens you, you don't, you don't disregard his threat. Your son, you will take him by his word, and this is war. Whatever you get, that's it. Your son, this is war. Whatever you get, that's it. That's why it's not good to go to war. So in war, it's a lawless situation. It's a lawless time. So what Iran is getting is based on what they are saying. So Israel is not Nigeria that will sit down and be looking until the snake strike. If you threaten them, they will take action. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll get our guests to respond very quickly before the break.
Yeah, a quick one. I was clear. I said nearly half a century. So 47 and nearly half a century. Perhaps maybe he needs to go back to dictionary and check. it's clear 20%. If you have 20% over 100, what is it? So I still stand by that. 20% over. We're talking about percentage. So if you are looking at percentage, except he has another definition there's another geometry or mathematics he read.
Just to be clear, the 20% is on oil only. This is regarding every other key resource that is coming through the strait.
The issue is simply this. Like I said, we have gone through this route in 1973, what you call global oil energy and all that. So we'll get through it.
Okay.
I mean, it's not strategic. America has a strategic reserve that can take for over 10 years. That's the truth.
Okay. Nigeria doesn't, though. And we're feeling the brunt of this.
I'm not sure we have 1 pint of reserve
and
anywhere.
we're feeling the brunt of this. So I guess sometimes that's why we're asking some of the questions that we're asking. It's not because we're pitching tent necessarily with any of the players involved in this war.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a question of analysis to the point of maybe if you're looking at, us as an ally of any of these countries, to say by the time we sit down at the negotiation table, we're having conversations that will help them to get to a resolution faster, to save ourselves as a country who is unavoidably caught up in this. But let's get back to the messages. Good afternoon, Somi. I think we're missing a key aspect of this problem. It all started when the US and the UK overthrew a democratically elected Iranian prime minister. The Islamic Republic is a consequence of US actions, and the government will endure because it is implementing a strategy similar to Mao Zedong's burn it all down. If I can't win, no one will win. Iran is not fighting conventionally. They are fighting for their survival. When people fight for survival, when people fight for survival, for survival, it becomes a just cause, and a just cause can never be defeated. Iran will not negotiate because they believe they have been deceived in past negotiations, just like Vietnam. Vietnam stopped negotiating after being deceived so many times at the negotiation table. Stalin from Suleja with that one. And this one before the break. Good afternoon, Somi and the guests. What do you really know about the Middle East war? Not what you read on the pages of newspapers, Mohammed Musa is saying, not what you watch on television that was prepared for you, not what you read on the New York Times or the London Times, but what facts do you really have? He's asking. Perhaps it's a question that we all have to go back and ponder on and see if we can come back with an answer. But we need to go on this commercial. Stay with us.